Welcome. This is Jay Skinner, and you're at Buyers and Sellers Go Live, PDT Associates. I'm just doing a little bit of jamming here, waiting for people to get on. The program starts at 10:35, so we got a few minutes. Swingin' Shepherd Blues. I'm Jay Skinner. This is Buyers and Sellers Show. Kind of the pre-show. I'll jam a little bit. We'll have some fun while everybody comes on board. Boy, thank you for joining us. Today's going to be an interesting show. Got a lot of people with a lot of experience coming on that I'm looking forward to some comments. Partnerships, joint ventures, working together with people, having those conversations with people that maybe can bring something to the table. And we're live. I'm Jay Skinner. Thank you again for coming. I'm so glad you're here. And this show is going to be kind of fun and just a little bit of logistics. I want you to know that I got a screen here and a screen here and a screen here. And I got one right here. And we're broadcasting in 1080p. So hope you're getting a good signal and great sound. And this show is what to discuss when considering a business partner. Considering adding business partners, you've got something going, but you need something, or you know someone else and you're thinking, and this is some of the things to discuss and how to approach it. And I kind of have a little side title that said, who said the only good partnership is no partnership? Well, I've said that for a lot of years, and I heard it from someone a long, long time ago, and I really can't tell you who it was, but I get it. And some of you that have had partnerships with other people know exactly what I mean, that it's difficult. And one of the things, and I'm going to just say this kind of preemptively here, is that having multiple people from different families, different groups, different places involved in a business goes on everywhere. And that's great. There's business setups to help control some of that, and we'll mention some of that a little bit later, but we're just going to get into the basics right now. And a big part of what I'm doing is enjoying the comments of other people that have come on board. And so I want to say thank you for coming right away, and good morning, Kevin. Thank you for coming. Good to see you here. I'm going to do a little post here just as a reminder to people. Let's post here to be on the show. And hopefully other people will see it. Boom. There we go. And Sharon, good morning. Yep, you set your alarm. Thank you. And she's done 618 consecutive live broadcasts for her business. at thesharonhoffmeister.com. And I would like to promote Sharon, and she's doing an awesome job. So I just put in here, post here to be on the show. So if you're watching and you saw that comment pop up somewhere, that'll help you know what we're talking about and where to go. Because I'm very interested in your comments as we go. So the other part is I said 10 points. I'm going to try to get through the 10 points. If for some reason the comments are such that it's like, makes no sense to move that fast, we'll make this part one, if that makes sense. So all that being said, let's go to our first topic here. I've done a little preparation. Oh, look at that. I did do some preparation, and it is important. Don't get in scramble mode. This is the show. That's what we're doing. We're not in a pre-show anymore, so I can pop that off. That's good. And here's our 10 topics that we're thinking about going through, that we're going through right now. And just start with number 1, mutual benefit. The first part in the whole conversation is that everybody involved must be bringing something valuable to the table. Now, sometimes there are, I don't know, I call them, heartfelt family favorites, or, that kind of a feeling. We just love them and want them to be part of the program. But, it's like, if you're going to do this and bring other people into the business, make sure that there is something valuable and it's perceived by everyone as valuable to the overall goals and efforts of the organization. And by the way, as I do each of these comments, please pop in with your comments. I'm going to be watching to see if someone comes in, because many of you have had great experience, and I'd like to see what you have to say about some of these things, or add some of your wisdom to the discussion. So, mutual benefit. It's got to be mutual, beneficially, and from a business perspective. Here's another one right here. Number 2. Mutual understanding and trust. Now, we're always going to have a contract. There always needs to be legal documents and contracts in place on big partnerships and joint ventures and working together with other people, just so that there's understanding. I mean, if I have a rental property, I have a lease agreement with the people. And when we sit down, we go over all the rules of the road so that there's no misunderstandings. But there has to be initial trust anyway. If you don't have a practical lawyer that can just cover the basics and not write a book in an agreement, find one. It doesn't have to be in a foreign language. It just needs to be an agreement that goes through the understanding that you have. And I really suggest that you anticipate what kind of problems you might actually come up against, and talk about them and say, how are we going to deal with them? I will tell you that it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to deal with problems before there's money on the table. And, it's like, especially if you're in a startup environment, cover the basics in your agreement, because when all of a sudden there's $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million of money out there that's coming in through cash flow or profit or who knows what, that's not the time to be deciding how we're going to deal with some basic issues. It's a lot easier to say, what would be the fair thing, and get it in the agreement. Then when the topic comes up, the first thing that you say in your group, in your partnership or whatever you're doing here, is, well, let's see what the agreement says. Period. That's it. Let's just go back to the agreement. Don't try to answer from your memory. If a problem's coming up, let's go back to the agreement, take a look at it. And it settles things so easily. I know it does, and has with me. In all the buying and selling that I've done over the years, I always try to have some sort of a document, something that lays out the general terms of what we're going to do in a simple way, and we go over it in detail before we engage. Mutual understanding and trust, though, must be there. You can't write that part of trust out of the agreement. I mean, if you have a deal where you don't trust them and you do an agreement, believe me, it's no fun. I say walk away if you can't get that. Number 3, what skills do we bring to the table? When you're engaging in initial conversations with people about a possible joint venture, think about, where people are weak, where they're strong, and I would just make it part of the conversation. Here are my strengths. Everyone lay out their particular strengths and weaknesses. Any ideas that they have about potential problems with the venture that maybe they've experienced up to this point. Let's get that out of the way. What's real important, by the time you get to a conversation with people about this, they have a pretty good idea of what they want to do and where they might fit in this. And it's time to talk about it, unearth potential problems, and discuss them. There may be some things that have come up you don't even know about. If you think about the very type of individual that you might be dealing with, or you might be, there's some personalities, there's some types of people that are not as transparent or open as like I am, for instance. It's like I'm pretty open book, but they're more quiet and observant, and they don't like conflict. And you got to bring that out, because you don't want to find out after you get into an agreement with an individual that all of a sudden they're holding some stuff in and it hasn't come out, and then now you have an explosion. So that's an important thing. And then very specific skills required to do the job, to build the business, to make things happen. Who's strong where? One of the great negotiation teachers of all time was named Chester Karras, Karrass. And those of you that have done a lot of flying know that you pull out the flight magazine and open it up, and many times there was a full page or 2 pages in about one of those negotiating seminars being held at a hotel, somewhere literally in the world. What a great program. Well, what I'm suggesting here is make sure that it's both win or no deal. Both win or no deal. I agree with that. It's a fundamental principle by which I do business. Both win or no deal. So when you're investigating the possibility of working together, you need to take that position. If you can bring something valuable to the table, then that's great. If you really can't, then it's not part of, don't do it. Don't be involved. Interview your potential partner in great detail. That's the best way to say, in great detail, about where they are, what they can do, what they can bring to the table, and let them know what you can bring to the table. And then one of the best ways to get there is, okay, we're going through this. Here's what we're thinking. Here's where I think you fit, and it could be great, and us working together. But to understand what they can really do, find out what they've tried to solve in terms of problems in their own past life or previous things, or how they would handle certain situations you see coming, and make sure that their approach and methodology and maybe experience matches what will work for you guys. Number 4, let's click right here. How likely is it that the other person is willing to really engage with you and go into this partnership? And by the way, let me remind you, if you have any thoughts or questions, type them in now so I can spot them, and we're going to bring them up. But this is a conversation and something that you need to have with yourself and with the other people that are involved. How likely is it that the other person is really willing to engage? Or are they just fishing? Ferret that out real early. Save your time. Save your confidential information. I mean, there are certain situations where before you have these conversations, if you happen to be the founder of the company in the beginning of it, get a mutual non-disclosure agreement out there for everybody's benefit. And there's plenty of forms out there. It can be a simple 1 or 2 page document, but just basically says, we're not going to talk outside of this place about these things. This is private between us. And what you say is private. What I say is private. And we agree that we're not going to take that information and go out and profit from it elsewhere, but we're going to keep it within our group. It's important to find out, what are they doing now other than talking to you today to try to rectify whatever problems they have in their business if you're coming to them, and smooth things out. See, you may be on one side or the other of this conversation. You may be the person with the great idea that needs more people. You may be the people being brought in and considered to be a partner in this new venture or old venture that needs some reinvent, restart, and rebuild. But if you're in that situation where they're talking to you and you're talking to a business that's starting or a going concern, find out, are you talking to other people like me? Or am I it? Are we just like, it'll help you understand their mentality. How did you get picked? Remember school out in the backyard and out in the playground? How did you get picked? Wasn't it nice when you got picked and you were the only one? You know, do they have others? Are they kind of tapped out and they're looking for an expert and they're talking to you because they figured out you know what you're doing? That's kind of good. Let's see what we got here. Hi there. Hi, Kimberly Chernoff. Okay, good. Glad you're participating. Glad you're here. Could make it in. Kimberly is someone special. Those of you that are here, please look up Kimberly. She's a great executive coach and teacher, and I want you to watch some of her stuff. Real practical approach to things. So if you're dealing with someone and they're not really committed to the program, maybe you want to move away. If you're the one that's being talked to about an opportunity to become a partner, just find out where you stand. Is this like an interview and they're lining up 5 different people and gonna shoot 4 and pick one? Or do they recognize you for the value that you already bring? It's got to work. Remember what I said earlier. If it's the best partnership is no partnership. And, it's like, we got to work together. So number 5, know what the other party needs to know. This is kind of salesy, but if you go into the conversation understanding who you're talking to, then, let's just say, for instance, you're talking to someone who's involved in investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, and corporate finance. They've been down those roads, and say they've had good experience in those areas, and they've got rules of their own about percentages, ratios. When they're trying to evaluate and decide what they're going to do and how they're going to build the business and the different things are going to happen, they know exactly where it needs to be. They've got their own metrics in mind, and they understand the shortfalls that they've got, and that may be why you're there to fill in the blanks. Let them be that. You don't need to tell them everything you know about corporate finance. They know you're important, but find out where is the hole in their metrics. Then be confident with what you know. Let them know that you're an expert in that particular area by talking about it, by describing and giving some ideas on what you might do to shore up some areas after you adequately discover and understand what kind of problems they're dealing with so that you can bring value to the table. They don't expect you to be a world-class expert in everything. They want you to be a world-class, confident, undefiled expert in your field. And that's why you're there in the conversation. Whether you're the buyer, seller, whatever side of the potential agreement you're on, everybody needs to know what lane they're in and where they're really good, and then see how this can all dovetail in. Okay? Number 6. Don't fool yourself about who will be making the decision. It might be you. It might not be, depending on who's in the conversation and what the need is. Understand going in who really holds the cards and who is the ultimate decision maker, and let them come to their conclusions with your information. If it's not you, if you're not the ultimate decision maker saying, yes, we want to have this partnership, we want to have a joint venture, we want to work together on a business basis here, on a long-term basis with you or with me, whoever is really holding those cards, that will be the case forever. And so the big question is, can you live with that? I know with my clients, I love my clients. I think they're great. And I also understand who pays the bill. Now, they also know that I'm very forthright about what I say and where I go with conversation and recommendations. And that's generally why they hire me to begin with, because they need someone who will speak the truth to them. And that's what I do. You just need to make sure in that relationship that you understand who it is. If you're the decision maker, help whoever you're talking to understand how you do that in your process and where you want them to be when it comes to differing opinions. I mean, some people handle that very well. Other people are like not as gracious, and just find out up front. Makes tons of sense. So we got here. I see there's some additional comments. There we go. Hans Emilio, thank you very much. Let's read it. It says, hi, Jay. It's key to have a shareholder agreement that everybody likes from the beginning. It should include, among other topics, valuation base, compensation, are relatives allowed in the organization? Yeah, good question. Percent of shares needed for investments, percent of debt allowed, tag along and drag along clauses, dividend and bonuses formulas, rotation of the chairman, how to choose and evaluate the CEO and other key executives, et cetera, et cetera. It's key to evaluate the agreement periodically. That is awesome, Hans. Hans is big time business owner in the land of Costa Rica, and he and I have been friends forever. And I asked him to be sure and come in. Thank you so much, Hans, for this. And I'm gonna hit print screen, and we're actually going to save this because this is great stuff. I'll just snip it with my snipping tool. This is great to remember. Thank you very much. Look at that. Edit, copy. I'm going to paste it somewhere I can save it and keep it. Good deal. Thank you, Hans, for that wisdom. Oh, here's another Brandon Matheny. Thank you very much. Really appreciate this. This is Brandon Matheny. He's the owner of HOA Fence Company. And I'm working with HOA Fence Company. If you haven't heard, if you're anywhere in the greater Indianapolis area and you need a residential fence, then go to hoafence.com, hoafence.com, and say, request a quote, and we'll be there to help you. And you can type in comments and say, hey, send Jay out if he's around. And if I'm out doing some work in the yards, I would love to meet you. So thank you, Brandon. This is great. Scott, good morning. Glad you're here. Thank you very much. Glad you're here. Okay. So what number are we ready for next? Number 7. And that is humble and forthright is the best position. We're going to put this in here. I want you to think about that. Look at it. I'll look at my time too. Good. We're good. Got about 8 minutes. Humble and forthright is the best position. Be truthful, honest, trustworthy, transparent. As much as it seems to be wise and maybe try to get an upper hand, Don't be that guy. Don't be tricky. Believe me, a humble position will be far more attractive. The more you can do to put the other party at ease, and if they have something that you want and you think is interesting, you put them in a position to get involved in the conversation and in a position to be attracted to you. The more humble and forthright and painfully honest you are, not be a jerk. I'm not talking about don't be a jerk, but just be honest and thoughtful. Great success will come from it. People will recognize it, trust will grow, and good things will happen. So, number 8, show your stuff. I like this. Don't be shy about what you've got and what you're able to do. When you're talking to one another, everybody, all the parties need to get out there and make sure everyone understands, I say, what lane you're in and what you do and what you bring to the table and where that value is. It's better to show more stuff and that you're a 360-degree thinker and how you are. And really, I think it's not a bad idea to show some of the bad stuff too. If you know you have some ways that you do things and that sometimes grate people a little bit wrong, this conversation up front before you ever have an official agreement is the time to show those colors too. And it's like, hey, sometimes I get like this, or this bad thing happens, or someone will say this and I kind of lose it. But I'm just like, we get it. Your self-awareness is huge. If you know you have a sensitivity to something, if you express that there. Now, I know there's an old saying says, if you don't want someone to get your goat, don't tell them where it's tied. So if you don't want someone to get your goat, don't tell them where it's tied. Well, I'm telling you, this is the time to let them know where your goats are tied and work through it. How do we deal with this? If you don't have any goats to worry about, good for you. But this is a good time to deal with both the positive and the negative and make sure everyone knows what everyone else can do. Here we go. Number 9. It takes more than genius. Now, when I'm dealing with some people, and I got to say right now, the deal I'm doing with HOA Fence, I am blessed with the fact that this particular business owner, Brandon Matheny, came to me having a huge amount of everything all set up technology-wise and everything ready to go. And that was awesome. What a great runway. We've been working together since March and we're making huge progress. So he's kind of genius there. It's like awesome that he had all that done. I had another guy that I worked with Stratus. He was a Wharton graduate. He would look at Excel files. They would sing. It was beautiful. He had great strategic know-how. It's awesome. But sometimes someone's just really good in one little area and they wouldn't really be considered genius. But here's the thing. If you read Malcolm Gladwell's book called The Outliers, I believe that's the one where you find it. He has stories about some of the smartest, most genius people in the world that really couldn't get out of a wet paper bag and cannot even find a job. It's sad. So genius alone isn't the trick, although it's nice to have some going. And if you have your 10,000 hours, and if you read Gladwell, you'll find about 10,000 hours. If you have 10,000 hours in a particular discipline that you've studied and worked and you know it, that's where the world-class expert comes from. And figure out where your 10,000 hours is. And please, if you haven't got your 10,000 hours in on something, hone down on the things that you're doing and concentrate a little bit on a couple things. You know, my 10,000 hours is in sales, marketing, strategy, computers, and I wish I could say music, I don't, I do it, but it's not as technical in music as these other things that I've done. So, but understanding what you're good at is good. So where are your 10,000 hours? And please be sure and apply it. And just because you're a genius or you're dealing with a genius doesn't mean they know how to be successful. So be aware of that. In another Gladwell book, and this is number 10, how about that? We're making it to my 30 minutes. Why planes crash. It might be tipping point, I think, but you'll learn why airplanes crash, or at least they used to more. And it was discovered that the planes that were being flown by companies owned and operated in like Southeast Asia or Eastern Asian countries, or like Japan, China, that area. It sounds so simple now, but the problem is that there was so much respect between each other. The co-pilot didn't feel like he could really object or argue that much with the pilot. When the pilot's flying this way into the side of a mountain, and they discovered that there was times that the co-pilot had a pretty good sense that they needed to pull up and do some things and make some changes. And the pilot was convinced it was this way. And the co-pilot he was absolutely convinced. But when it was all said and done, he had more and too much respect for the leader to take over, to object in a huge way. And so you need to be able to know when you're right, even in the face of the owner, the boss, whoever it is that's in control there, and do not acquiesce if you know you're absolutely right. If the plane's headed for a mountain, or your car's heading off a bridge that's out and you're very aware of it, and for some reason he totally does not see it, make sure that you let him see it. You'll be respected for it. So that's what makes planes crash. You have to have a relationship with whoever you're dealing with and whoever you're going to be a partner with, where you can do that with one another. It's got to be both win or no deal. Both win or no deal. Now, many of these other businesses, if it's stock ownership, could be partnerships, limited partnerships. There's a lot of different forms they take. I mean, limited partnerships were designed so people could get involved with money, but not have a say in the business that's covered by the general partners. Other types of corporations allow equity investment or debt investment without all the people involved having a whole lot of say. On the other hand, there's different things. And I remember back when I was doing business work in the financial industry, we talk about partnerships and say, depending on how everything's structured, you got to watch out, because every partner is 100%. It's not 50-50. Now, depending on the laws and where you are, that's one of the reasons I think the limited liability partnerships have come up, to make it easier to structure things. But boy, you got to watch out legally where you are. Anyway, so we see all that. And the bottom line to this is it a good idea to have a partnership? Well, if you get through all these conversations, if you still want to have one, you love that person and they love you, and good things are happening, sign up, do it. Do it. And have a blast and build the best in the world of whatever you're doing. I want you to have a great day. Thank you for the comments. This was beautiful. I really appreciate people getting involved. I know a lot of you sit back and watch, and that's okay. Some of you are catching this on the replay, and I'm so thankful for you. I don't say this very often, but if you share, like, all that stuff, subscribe if you're on YouTube, connect with me. Love to be closer with you and help you any way that I possibly can. So with that, we're going to go. I'm Jay Skinner. This is PDT Associates Buyers and Sellers Program. Have a great day. Have a great week. See you next Friday, 10:35 a.m. right here. Bye now.
Bye now. Thanks for coming.